Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to Inputs, Outputs, KeyCode Media series, giving you short technical tutorials for production, post, and the audiovisual industries. I'm your host, Jeff Sengpiel, Chief Technologist here at KeyCode Media, and we're streaming live today from our KeyCode Media Burbank office. Today's topic is going to be Adobe Premiere Pro post-production. Adobe is constantly innovating in their products, listening to the needs of creatives and bringing those tools to life. One thing that never changes is that things are always changing. Carl Soule from Adobe will be talking about how they have been leveraging bigger and stronger hardware to bring more performance. We'll also be touching on a feature that's becoming more of a necessity, being able to rapidly caption finished material, and a tech preview of direct playback of your media right from the cloud. And maybe we'll talk a little about conform tools and replacement of media. Always the best for last, huh? So why is it KeyCode Media discussing Adobe Premiere Pro? For over 20 years, KeyCode Media has been installing broadcast, media, and entertainment. Collaborative video team equipment solutions that just work. We've been the preferred dealer and systems integrator for installing and supporting large and small Adobe collaborative productions with edit, color, and audio suites, shared storage, and ingest to delivery solutions. Our success in designing, installing, and supporting post-production systems comes from our eclectic and experienced team that successfully installs a broad range of audiovisual, broadcast, and post-production equipment solutions. So you combine that with our 24/7 KTC aftermarket support plans and certified training, your team has everything it's going to need to implement your ideal system with ease. And lastly, KeyCode Education provides industry-recognized certifications. If you work for a qualifying media company, your staff can receive free training with our ETP program from the state of California. We offer a variety of classes covering Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, Photoshop, and more. Classes are available for individuals or group training and currently run live online with in-person and on-site options. Please check out our full class offerings on the website. Okay, enough with the infomercial. Let's get on with the show. Today, we'll be talking about the latest new features in Adobe Premiere Pro. We're going to quickly get into our interview and demo with the Adobe team. Carl Soule, Senior Technical Sales Manager, will be showing off the latest and greatest additions to your favorite editorial platform. Also, Steve McKenna from Studio Network Solutions will be joining us to talk shop about improving Adobe workflows for teams, using their enhancements with storage. Browsing, the entire team can access and organize projects, metadata, and media. So, in theory, you could have your whole team touching and working with the same content all at once. Or some team members tagging searchable metadata that can then be accessed by other team creatives in real time. We're also going to hear about the latest updates in Slingshot, VPN, and Nomad, helping move your workflow wherever you need it to be. Okay, let's dive into the demo. Just a quick reminder, if you have any questions throughout this event, shoot them over to us using the YouTube, Facebook chat, or the Vimeo chat embedded on our website page. Hey, Carl, great to see you. Let's jump right into the demo.
Thanks, guys. One of the first things that I really want to get in and cover today is talking about performance enhancements and particularly leveraging the latest and greatest features that are found in modern hardware. If you've bought a new laptop or new desktop recently, you know that there's a lot of new technology that's been put into these devices, and we want to make sure that the Adobe apps fully take advantage of even these specialty chips that are designed for specific acceleration. We want to make sure we're taking advantage of that. I've got Premiere Pro open on my screen right now, and I'm just going to make the program monitor full screen here just to show you a couple of quick charts that talk about this. And the first thing that I want to show, this has to do with something called Intel QuickSync. This is a function found in Intel chips. It improves render performance when exporting out H.264 and HEVC files. And as you can see by the graph, and you can see from version 14 to version 14.8 to now version 15.1, this is the latest and greatest version that just came out last week, you can see that there's been a significant improvement in the speed it takes. Shorter is better on this graph, and you can see that there's a huge leap in performance when you're exporting out this format. Now, on the Mac side, one of the biggest things that we see is everybody is interested to know when we're supporting native Apple Silicon. The M1 chip is already in the Mac Mini, the MacBook Air, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro. We're anticipating more Macs that are going to be coming here. That's one area that we are definitely focused on. And if you're not familiar, if I switch over to the Creative Cloud desktop application, just know that there's a little icon over on the side of the Creative Cloud desktop application for beta apps. So you have access if you need to test this out on an M1 chip today. There is a beta version available. You can actually download the beta. You can have it installed with the shipping version of the software side by side. But particularly for the M1 chip, you want to check this out because you're going to see what kind of performance you're going to get with native Apple Silicon. Now I'm going to switch back over to Premiere Pro, and let me move on here because I want to talk a little bit about After Effects. With After Effects, a lot of people have been asking for faster render times, and that is something that's also coming in beta. We just recently turned on a long time #1 user request, which is improved performance in After Effects. Multi-frame rendering is going to really live up to this promise. You can see speed ups up to 4.7 times faster than what we had before with single frame rendering. Some of these quotes are fantastic. Seeing 100% on the cores and the RAM actually getting utilized is brilliant. So this is a game changer. This is something that the After Effects community is going to get really excited about. And we can't wait for this to be in the shipping version.
Cool. I do know also our friends from Apple announced the 24-inch iMac with the M1 chips is also now beginning to ship. So they're iterating faster than almost anyone can keep up with. Busy folks over there. So that it's very cool there that you're talking about the improvements you're getting on CPU. It looks like.
It's both CPU and GPU. I kind of picked out just a couple of quick highlights to show you guys, but there's a number of other things that I could have covered as well. We're doing decoding on the GPU for faster and better playback with things like H.264 and HEVC files. And we're using a wide range of technology from Apple Metal to, as I showed, things like Intel QuickSync, just to make sure that you're getting the best possible performance on whatever hardware you decide to standardize on.
Very cool. So that also includes like the hard heavy duty like NVIDIA GPUs that people toss into PCs as well.
Absolutely. We work on a variety of different platforms. We've been working with, both OS manufacturers to just make sure that it's a first-class experience. And, it's very important. We understand people invest a lot of money in this heavy iron. They want to be able to take full advantage of it. And a lot of what we've already done between 14 and 15, and a lot of what we have coming is directly there to address this and to just get things faster. I think, every editor, their #1 feature request is just speed. Make it faster, make me able to export out faster, and that's what we want to try and target.
That sounds great. It makes me feel better about all those heavy iron GPUs I've installed over the last couple of years. And the other thing also now editors can do is they can order their coffee in instead of having to go out and get it while they're rendering. So it saves a lot of time on both sides.
Absolutely.
All right. The second thing that I want to jump in and cover is talking a bit about captions and particularly something called speech to text. This is a feature that half of what I'm going to show you here is actually already shipping in the application. The other half is coming here soon. And let me just take my screen. I'm just going to stretch out this Essential Graphics panel here so that we can see some of the controls that happen with captions. And really quickly to talk about this, to start with, I want to talk about the new captions features. So we've revamped the entire captions workflow in Premiere Pro, whether you're dealing with closed captions, open captions like subtitling for social media. All of this works in a new way that has been redesigned to just make it simpler and easier to understand and to utilize. First off, in my Premiere Pro sequence, you're going to notice something right away here. There's a new type of a track up here at the top called a subtitle track. That's something that I can either hide or show as I need. And what this means is if I take an SRT file and I drag it and drop it in the timeline, it's actually going to come in as its own separate subtitle track. And each of these sections of the subtitles can be modified or changed over here in the Essential Graphics panel. So the same panel that you use for the titler now works with subtitles. And with subtitles, you have a lot of creative control. If you're putting subtitles on stuff for social media, subtitles are fantastic because you can pick fonts, you can pick the colors, the strokes, you can add strokes. I've even built out in this project, we've got a couple of different built-in styles here so that I can actually choose between, there's kind of a boring white title there. Here's one called Ye Old Fantasy Title. And here's the one that we're actually going to go with here, which is called Oswald Yellow. And I have the ability to change these styles even on a segment by segment. And you can see that we have all the different segments in the subtitle track. I can trim these, move them, and split them around. Now, where I'm actually seeing and controlling this is a brand new panel called the text panel. And from the text panel, I can come in here and I can actually change text. I can jump to a word in the captions track as necessary. But this is only part of the planned feature. So everything that I've shown you here is in the version 15 software, 15.1 that's out now. Something that's coming in the near future, and we have people have been invited to join the beta. You'll notice that there is a tab up here for transcript. And the transcript functionality is coming later this year, not quite out just yet. But the idea behind the transcript functionality, I'll just take a little short segment here. I've got this guy doing a little spoken word poetry, and this will work with an in and out range. It will work with an entire clip, but basically I can take any sequence, choose to create a transcript, and in this case, I'm going to go ahead and check this box to transcribe in to out only, and we'll hit transcribe and you'll see that start the process there. But this is something that is actually powered by Adobe Sensei. It generates a searchable transcript, and best of all, the transcript, I can actually click on a word and it will jump the playhead to that word. But even better, once I have the transcript, I can go in and this will automatically identify speakers for me. Each speaker can be named and those names will automatically propagate through the entire transcript. But best of all, once I have the transcript, if I want to turn this into a captions track, it's literally just a one-click button, and I can go through and turn this into subtitles or closed caption 608, 708 files. You can see the different formats that are available there. I'm just going to stick with a subtitle, click OK, and boom, it's separated out that transcript into these nice bite-sized chunks so that we get the transcript up on the screen. And again, I can use custom styles. Here are those same styles in my project here. So if I wanted to use that Oswald Yellow, I could just take that and drag it and drop it onto a segment, or I can load it up over here in the text style and pick from it in this list here. There's Oswald Yellow. And now we've got our captions track already generated from speech to text.
Some very cool stuff there. So the question that someone's probably typing into one of the chat windows right this very second is the transcript functionality going to need an internet connection to function?
That's a very, very good question. Right now, if you've been invited to the beta, so if you, in order to get invited, if you're interested in checking this out, you can actually open up Premiere Pro, go to that new text panel in version 15 of Premiere and click on the transcribe tab. The current plan is to have that something that can actually run locally. We currently in the beta, as we've been kind of testing out various options and various things, we haven't fully lock down a lot of the technology. So it is an upload process during the beta. But we would like to definitely have this as something running locally for customers that are not online and have the ability to use this offline.
Cool. And that's going to make closed captioning also a lot easier. I also wanted to point out the distinction between open captioning, which is what we're actually seeing, and closed captioning. Closed captioning is generated by your television set. It pops up the track that's hidden below there to allow folks that are hearing challenged to be able to understand what's being said. Open captioning or a subtitle is already baked into the video as it goes out to everyone.
That's correct. And the nature of this, I showed the Essential Graphics panel with that open captioning or subtitling because the technological underpinnings for closed captioning, because it has to be decoded by your television off of a standard chip. Your creative options for closed captioning are very, very limited. There's a few options that show up in the panel, such as the ability to like have the text pop on, or there's a couple of very, very simple animation styles that you can pick and choose from. And the color palette is also very limited. Most people just stick to like white text on a black background. And you can definitely do that using this panel. So whatever mode you happen to be in, and you can actually also have multiple those subtitle tracks. I only showed one in place there, but if I suddenly wanted to convert everything to closed captioning as well, I could drag a lasso tool around all of them and duplicate the subtitle layer, and then change the new layer that I'm creating to something like a 708 file. It's a very easy way to use the same data and create both closed captioning and open captioning if you like.
It sounds like some really cool functionality there. And I like that whole thing. You can choose, the style. So say you've got, one speaker you have with one style and another speaker you have with another style. It's real easy just to determine who's talking just visually. It's like, oh, that she's in yellow, he's in white.
Absolutely. And we wanted to make sure that once you learn a set of tools, if you used an older version of Premiere Pro, a lot of that functionality was in like a specialty panel that you had to work with. And so you had to kind of pick and choose between using the wonderful new titler in Premiere or using the Captions workflow. And so I wanted to make sure and highlight the fact that the whole Captions workflow is a revamp in this version 15 software, because it really lets you leverage the creative tools when you can use them in things like open captioning, and just better overall support for things like SRT files. There's a lot more ease of use in going in and using things like SRT files, MCC, SCC captions files.
Sounds great. It's always good to have a better tool set.
Next, let me jump over to the media replacement functionality, because this is actually a really cool thing that's been a long time coming. And for this, I'm actually going to be inside both After Effects and Premiere. One of the big requests, we've had this idea and this functionality built into the applications called motion graphic templates, MOGRTs. And one of the big things about using a motion graphic template is in the past, you had to bake in most of the graphic elements. So if you wanted to include a logo, if you wanted to include some kind of moving video clip, that had to be baked into that MOGRT file. And we had a long-standing request to not only be able to change type or text or swap out different things from like a drop-down menu, but actually have drag and droppable regions where you can drop in additional video clips or still images to customize and modify a motion graphic template. So this is something that was built in After Effects. And this one actually has a lot of really wonderful functionality built into it, including a little bit of audio, as you just heard there. But the idea is I've built this around this particular video clip. I don't want to include this video clip, but I've been using this as a design element for the motion graphic template that we're creating. I can come over here to the Essential Graphics panel where we've built out the various controls and just say replace this layer with a placeholder layer. I've now set this up for any type of still image, any type of video clip, or even a timeline in Premiere Pro can be dragged and dropped into this region on the screen. So if we come back over to Premiere Pro, I've got a couple of examples of this here. I can go ahead and show you. This one here, you can see the animation comes in. And I'm just going to go ahead and take this full screen here so that you can see this. Everything that you see in here has been customized from the Essential Graphics panel. I've put in Van's picture. put his hashtag in there, said, glad to have Keycode Media as a partner. And then we've got Keycode's video is actively playing back in here so that we can see that in operation. And I've even dropped in Keycode's logo off to the side here. That's a separate element, but you can see how well that works with the video playing back. Inside of Premiere, the controls for this, if I want to change that video out to maybe something different, I can go into the media sources section of the panel. Let me make sure I've got the right one selected here. There we go. There's Van. And from here, these areas are drag and drop regions, or I can even pull from Finder if it's a video clip that's not currently in my project. But what I can do here, let me go ahead and go to my project, and I've got a different video clip that I'm going to take and just drag it and drop it into this clip. Just like that. This replaces this out with something from Keycode Education. So now we've updated this and we have a new motion graphic use case here. Now, I've done a lot of customization in here to make this look more like Snapchat. I've got yellow background, the nature of what this looks like. If you want to see an example of using the exact same motion graphic template with Twitter, this is my good friend Dave Helmley, and Dave talking about the presentation today. I made sure that Van and Dave actually have the same number of likes, just for political purposes. But you can see how all of these different text elements are all updatable. And this motion graphic template in After Effects was built in such a way that it automatically highlights @names, and it also highlights hashtags automatically. So if I scroll down here and I just open up the text controls, you can see these are the different text windows. And let me do that on Dave's one here so that you can see that really in action. So here we have like the time and date information. Here you can see this is just a text field that says see @CarlSoulet and hashtag motion graphic templates. And it's automatically changing the color of those elements. This is just one example of what you can do with media replacement MOGRTs. So a lot of these MOGRTs are actually available through Adobe Stock. And best of all, Adobe Stock often offers free motion graphic templates. You can find those by going to the Browse tab inside the Essential Graphics panel. Both the ones that I've chosen here today are actually available today as free motion graphic templates. And this is another example. There's a couple different styles. This is all the same motion graphic template with different stock images that I pulled from Adobe Stock and dragged and dropped again into this background area to provide these different title with a little bit of Pro in the background. So we can kind of experiment around a little bit, see how these are going to work.
That's some really cool functionality. And the fun thing there is, sometimes tube monitors from our education video. I think we're going to need to do a little bit there. But this is going to make social posting and all that other stuff move a hell of a lot faster.
Absolutely. And the content velocity that we're seeing right now, where the people making these motion graphic templates, the old way of thinking, the old way of working, where you make a single bespoke graphic that gets used once and then you discard it and throw it away, or if you have to change something, you got to go back to the graphics department and tweak it. We're really starting to see the evolution of that, where the designers can spend the time that they really want to be doing, which is making something new and original and create and stay in that creative space. And the editor, if it's fast and it's easy enough to just go in and change a name, they're more than happy typically to do that. So it kind of provides the best of both worlds of being able to do this design work and then reuse it and repurpose it as necessary.
And the other thing also there for our friends who work in promotions departments, I mean, next Thursday, in 2 days, tomorrow, tonight, just lay them all out there and lay them out, knock them down, and export them. That's going to save some folks a lot of time there.
Absolutely. And we see the graphics departments using this Essential Graphics panel in After Effects as well. I didn't get into really showing how to build that out in the time that we had available, but it's one of those things you can take pretty much any layer in your composition and drag it and drop it up there. And what you're doing is kind of twofold. You're building out a series of shortcuts to make it very easy to change some common elements as you're designing and creating, or if you have to hand this off to another designer. There's nothing worse than trying to dig through 300 layers of an After Effects composition to find that one value that you got to go in and modify to make a bunch of different variants. So that makes it really easy in After Effects. But at the same time, you're building out the control panel, literally building the controls that the editor will have. So you can pick and choose what you want. One of those showed that I had complete options on changing the font on every little part of that social media graphic. That's entirely up to the designer. I could have locked that down in After Effects and said, no, we don't want those controls. We don't want to go too far off brand. And that's part of the beauty of it is the motion graphic designer still has the creative control. They pick and choose what they are allowing the editor to modify, so they can keep it on rails and keep it in the direction where you want it to be.
That's perfect, because anytime we can keep Comic Sans off air, the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And heart-shaped wipes. I'm done with heart-shaped wipes.
Yep. And stars. Awesome.
Okay, the last thing that we want to cover today is a special workflow dealing with Adobe Premiere Productions. Now, if you're not familiar with Productions, I'm just going to clean up my screen a little bit here. We'll close that panel. And I want to bring in the production panel over on the side here. Productions are a way of organizing and working in long form, working on episodic TV series, anything that requires a lot of media. This has been a collaborative tool that was developed in conjunction with a lot of different feature films. Netflix's Mank was one of the films that used this when it first came out. It was very beneficial, especially working in the environment of 2020. One of the things that we saw was a lot of people adapting Productions to use them remotely. And there's a lot of different ways. It's very flexible. It works with remote desktop solutions if you want to leverage existing heavy iron. It works with managed cloud instances like from companies like Bebop. But one thing has stood out to us as a special workflow, and we're starting to see more and more people adapt it, and that's using Productions with a technology called LucidLink. And LucidLink is a special way of using cloud storage that mounts and looks like local storage on your machine. LucidLink has some special sauce. I don't fully understand how the technology works, but the best thing about this is it doesn't really change anything. Your system and Premiere behave as if the LucidLink cloud storage is locally connected network storage. It really sounds too good to be true, but in this example here, I'm actually using a production that's found inside of LucidLink, and you'll see here on my system, if I just open up this Finder window, you'll notice that I have this drive here called Adobe that actually is showing it has 1.13 petabytes available. So that's currently cloud storage. I'm using AWS storage right now, and I can see that by clicking on the LucidLink logo up in the top. And I can see that this is AWS cloud storage in North Virginia that I'm currently editing off of. But the beauty of this is it just looks and acts like local storage. I can drag and drop files into it to copy. I can even double click on files if I want to play back something from the cloud. I can actually do that. There's Dave right there. I'll go ahead and close that file. I can have my production in this central location. So for a team of editors, this is kind of the best of all worlds, because you can set up Premiere Pro in such a way if you need to use 10-bit color, if you need to have a color accurate monitor connected to your laptop, if you want to have multiple screens set up, there's no limitations or restrictions. And I can even have things like 5.1 audio if I wanted to. It acts and behaves just like I'm running everything locally, because for the most part I am. The media, there's this one central source of truth on the LucidLink storage, And you may think that, speed or performance might be an issue, but believe me when I say that the performance on LucidLink is really, really nice. It's doing some predictive caching. It's doing some other stuff under the hood to just make sure that you have the frames delivered when you need them, including caching locally if necessary on anything new that gets uploaded to LucidLink, so that I have access to it very, very quickly. But it's different from like a traditional syncing service in a number of ways. It is like that one source of truth. When I drag and drop a file onto the LucidLink mount, it shows up in Finder for everybody connected to it. And, I sound like I work for LucidLink. I don't. I work for Adobe. But as we've been working with different customers, getting them migrated to working online and working remotely, we found that this is just such a good workflow. We wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of it.
Very cool. I had actually seen LucidLink before, and this is the actual definition of smoke and mirrors. So what's happening here is LucidLink is lying to Premiere and saying your media is here. So when you go to request it, it delivers exactly what you need right when you need it, but it's lying the whole time to Premiere, and Premiere thinks, oh, the files are just here. So it doesn't matter where you pop in your timeline, it's going to request those things. And their predictive caching is pretty cool. I saw a demo probably about 9 months ago from them, and it's extremely interesting technology and delivering stuff just in time.
Absolutely. And, it's one of many solutions. We actually designed productions to meet the strict requirements we used to see, where people were all within one building. There was no internet connectivity. You edited off of shared storage that existed within the facility, and only a limited number of workstations had access to it. So adapting it for working in the current environment was something that we saw a lot of people going in different directions. And it really just depends on what you need. There's plenty of people out there that can work off of some type of remote workstation where they're just logging in and seeing the screen of another workstation, and that works for a number of people. But LucidLink just is one of those things that even if you just use LucidLink to store your production and you keep the media in another location, it really, really works well to allow for a bunch of editors to collaborate together. You get the full benefit of productions. You get to see who's actually working on what. We've done battle testing with it, having having multiple editors at the same time, double clicking on the same project file. And LucidLink is fast and smart enough to say, oh, only one editor gets read-write access. Everybody else gets read-only access for that project. So we've really tested it to make sure that it'll meet the needs of people in a fast-moving environment where different people are opening and closing different projects within the production. And it works really well for that.
That's the one thing that a lot of things have had to happen over this last year, and a lot of technologies come to the front, and it's obvious based upon the amount of folks that are using that solution that it's really fully baked and it works day in and day out. The only thing you're gonna have to look out for is you do have to have enough of an internet pipe into either your facility or your home if you're working from home, to make sure you're able to achieve the benefits that you can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is the technology actually came from a government-based solution. So as we've had to go through many security checks with some of the larger broadcasters and corporations out there, LucidLink seems to just pass very quickly. And there's no question about whether it's secure or not.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Carl. We'll see you and Van later with a live Q&A from you folks, the audience. Now, you're working in Premiere, and you need somewhere to put all that media, and you need some way to organize all that media, and you need some way to get all that media to people if they aren't back in the office yet, and you need a way to track and push things to archive on tape or in the cloud. Hey, relax. I know a guy. He's Midwestern, down to earth. We'll get you all set up with him. Steve, how are things in your world?
Oh, going really well, Jeff. Thanks for having us here today.
Awesome.
How are you?
I'm doing okay, I think. So when I think,
that's the most important thing.
Quite true. When I think of SNS Evo shared storage, I'm thinking software defined. You guys have all kinds of tools from Share Browser to Slingshot to Nomad, VPN tools. Can you give the audience a quick overview of the tools you've got available to help collaborative media teams?
Yeah, it's not enough today to just be fast, right? There's plenty of fast out in the world. But the unique challenges of video teams are really need to be addressed through software. So whether that be Share Browser, which is our asset management system, that can be used through a web browser, can be used through our desktop application to move files, or it's our automations to be able to take some of that manual process and file management tasks out of the creative team's way on a day-to-day basis so they can get on with creating great content. So whether it be our transcode engine within the Slingshot automation engine, or whether it be file moves or auto data tiering or auto archiving based on the age of the file. What SNS really believes in with all of our software too is that it be incredibly easy to use. It should be intuitive. It shouldn't be something that takes a lot of follow-up training. So while the automation engine certainly sits as part of a RESTful API of something that our incredibly technical users and our large corporate clients and big studios can avail themselves of, there is also that Slingshot user interface as well. So that even our most boutique production company that lives with 2 editors and a producer can also take advantage of those automation tools. Obviously, with last year, we had Nomad that we released, and that is very much a remote workflow utility designed for Adobe users most specifically, but also any production application can leverage Nomad. More on that a little bit later. And then, again, for our we won't say less tech savvy. Certainly our customers can do anything, but for those without the IT support that might be necessary to set up some of the remote connections like a VPN, we did release our own cloud-hosted VPN service. This allows our clients to A, be up and running in about half an hour when they need to, and B, provides a more secure connection even for our larger clients. So because the SNS VPN sits in the cloud, the server does anyway, the on-prem server becomes a client of that. So when I grant you access to my network, Jeff, I'm only granting you access to the Evo server, not to any other device on our network. We're not going to pass that connection through, so you can't, print off anything weird on my printer behind me. So,
where's the fun in that? Yeah, security is one of those big things that people have been, concerned about, as the last year has worn on, and we've had to kind of make those changes and flips. It also, allows that changes the throughput mix into a company's network.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's where the Nomad coupled with the VPN is so nice, because you really are just downloading a proxy and using something that is a tried and true method for editing over a slower connection, which is just an offline workflow, on that side.
Very cool. So you mentioned the boutique attendees and the larger enterprise class folks. How have you guys been supporting small companies that have been looking to grow throughout the last year?
I would say we support small companies the same way we've always supported all of our clients. We don't see a distinction in the tool set that's required to create video. Everyone should have access to that. We fully believe in that. We believe in the democratization of these workflows. So the biggest way we help small companies is our free and unlimited license model. When you buy any one of our servers, whether it's our smallest $3,800 server or multi-petabyte clustered system, you get all of the software tools for free in unlimited fashion with no per-seat license fees. So what that really allows is the flexibility for some of our smaller clients that as they bring on freelancers, maybe just for one project, as they're beginning the phases of their growth, that they don't have to commit to a large continued operating expense beyond the project, and gives them the flexibility in their expenses to really bid on anything and go out and compete.
Well, and the other thing is that predictability makes for a happy CFO at larger enterprise type companies. Anything that's predictable is great, especially in times of turmoil and strife.
Certainly. Well, and also for our larger corporations and for freelancers that are out in the world, that no per seat model, that no per seat license fee model also minimizes the cost per employee, which lets us get more people back to work. as we come out of this. We don't need every employee also has to have a multi-$1,000 price tag just for the extra piece of software that they need beyond their production application or something like that. So it helps companies hire more people without having as much concern about it. Well, I have to get them this and this. And so not only are they going to, cost the employee benefits and the health insurance, but then I also have to buy them more licenses of this software or more concurrent users of this or that. It's just one more thing to manage, and easy is what everyone needs right now. We've had enough hard, in my opinion.
Quite true. And because a lot of folks have become unconstrained by real estate, they've added on a lot more people than they actually can fit. And they've also got a lot more media out there than actually can fit into their storage. And you guys scale extremely easily. We do.
More important too, with Nomad and Slingshot, with the automation engine of Eva, for our clients who have been leveraging our workflow, coming home will be very easy because we've been keeping these files in sync, coming from the master folder structure. So we're not going to come home to a bunch of media that needs to be relinked because someone grabbed the drive and took it home and changed the folder name, or someone worked a different way. Our stuff will be very seamless as people come back into the office, which will be nice. Because I'm waiting for the great media relinking to occur when everyone starts to get home. And goes, oh, well, we've all been working independently our own way. So Evo's been keeping that streamlined for our clients.
Yeah, anytime you can avoid media offline slides in any application is good. And we've been talking today about Premiere Pro and how they've got their improved workflow for media teams. How have you guys been supporting teams that are Premiere centric?
We've been supporting Premiere since it really started to gain notoriety and popularity. Even before that, we've always been believers that whatever storage system you have, whatever workflow tool system you have, should never dictate the creative tool that you're using, that you need that flexibility, whether it be available talent, whether it be preference, whether it be an unpopular upgrade to a pre-existing application. So with Premiere, even since the beginning, we've been doing things that are only now becoming native to, like Adobe Productions, for instance, for file locking for Premiere. But we've always extended that beyond even just the Premiere workflow. We've done that with After Effects for automatic locking, for Photoshop, for graphic designers. So we continue to co-develop with Adobe. And certainly we spend a lot of time with the Adobe guys through Keycode Media as well. And we get to kind of talk about workflows and just solve problems together. So whether it be our file locking, our native panel, our native extension that we released a couple of years ago now for Premiere and for After Effects, so that share browser metadata comes in, or even something as simple as the scraping of XMP metadata into our database. I have so many clients that are starting with a shared workflow or coming from a more generic server to something that's more purpose-built into the video world that have done logging. They've done logging in Adobe Bridge. Their graphic designer, their photographer has been using Bridge. They've done some logging in Premiere. Our ability to grab that metadata and bring it into our database seamlessly prevents them from having to retag. So between that and repurposing whatever they've already got with the unlimited license model, I would say we're supporting those Adobe workflows, very, very well. It's a simple answer.
Awesome. Yeah, and the panel integration is just slick and easy, and that's like you said, we've had enough hard this last year. We like things to be simple.
Yeah. Well, even when we do demos now, when we release the extension, people's faces light up when I mount a network volume from inside of a panel in Premiere. So that if something was offline, I can just click on it, or I use a restore from archive button from there, that I start bringing that asset back and I never leave the production application. Editors, creative teams don't want to leave their production application, and they shouldn't have to. Accountants don't have to leave Excel. Why do we have to bounce between 5 or 6 different windows? So that's really what SNS's mantra is let's keep everything as native and in line as possible. Let's not have people bouncing around the different windows and different software, and let's build it all in-house. So if you do need help, there's one person to ask, not trying to get 2 or 3 people pointing fingers at each other together in a room.
Yeah, that's never productive. Of course, we don't want people bouncing around their applications, but we're going to bounce around the Q&A from our audience. So let's jump on into that. All right, let's take a look at what we've got in terms of our Q&A. A lot of interesting questions coming up about the captions and transcripts and all that fun stuff. Melissa and Big Table had similar questions. We'll bunch them together. Can you export captions as a VTT file? And can you export the transcripts as a doc?
So there are going to be export options. I can't speak to VTT directly, but I know that SRT is something that's supported, and there are some simple tools out there to convert SRTs into VTT. VTT is more of a web-based format. So we'll just see how things go. One thing I would recommend, if you haven't signed up for the beta yet, go ahead and do that. We are still taking people in this, the application itself is always in an open beta now. But this is one of those special features where you have to kind of sign up to be a part of the speech to text beta as we're testing things out. If possible, you can put in, if you're part of the beta, you can put in a feature request for VTT, and we're definitely going to be tracking that and see how many people are requesting that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Carl. Also, by the way, for those who were noticing, Van Bedient with Adobe has also joined us for the Q&A. So, interesting. Someone is asking, can you export captions by itself without exporting video at the same time?
Okay. There's definitely, in the text panel that I showed, there are some special export options that are available there. In the main Premiere exporter, there is the ability to go to a Captions tab and choose to export out captions files at the same time that you export out the video clips. We used to have some functionality that allowed you to export just the video or just the captions track from there. I think right now in the beta functionality that is disabled. But stay tuned. The reason speech to text is in this beta right now is we're evaluating and we're kind of getting the final feature set locked in.
Very cool. Let's bounce to a quick question about productions. Tanuki is asking, as of experience with Adobe Productions, I have local at home or NAS-based production folder with all sorts of core things, music cues, VFX clips stored within that folder, and so far no problem. Actually, it's more of a statement than a question. I hate
it. Thank you for using Productions. Yes. That's awesome.
Are there any ideal settings for preferences using Premiere on an Apple M1 Mini? So I guess if you're in that beta, that tech preview.
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing to know right now is that the current release version of Premiere, which is 15.1 at the time we're doing this, is not optimized for the M1 chip, but we do have people that are running it. It's using the Rosetta 2 technology that's built into the operating system, built into the use of the M1 chipset. To get native performance, you do have to go and download the beta. To my knowledge, there's no special preferences or settings that you have to worry about. It's just a matter of, you can test out the performance between the two. You can have, I believe you can actually have both installed side by side. If you go and get the beta version, you can have the shipping version running using Rosetta, and you can have the beta version, which will be running native M1. And it's good to compare and contrast, the performance. We're seeing just amazing performance on the M1 chip. So we're really excited about it.
I'll just add on to that, Carl. I mean, one of the things about beta is great to get early access. A lot of times we'll put pretty complete features into beta, knowing that, we want some feedback and testing before it gets released. The M1, although you'll see great benefits from it, we are still optimizing on it. We're still working on it. So it's only going to get better. So if you have an M1 now, it's great to download and take a look, but expect that'll even improve from where it is today. Okay, question from Matthew. I'm about to build a 15 edit bay post-production facility from the ground up using APP. I'm assuming that means Adobe Premiere Pro as the primary editor. What do I need to think about during the design? Where can I cut costs, and where should I not go cheap? Hey, Steve, you want to start with that one?
Certainly. I can start off. Obviously, with with that many users, having a good network is going to be critical. Being able to edit off of a centralized server is going to be critical to save time, so you're not replicating data and things across. Where I wouldn't save too much money is really on the network infrastructure, the shared storage. Don't, get just Cat 6. It's a nominal difference. Get Cat 6A with shielding for the longer runs. Don't try to save too much on the RAM and things like that, and the workstations. That's something that's going to be necessary. Although I was just talking to Carl and Van, to be honest, and the M1 chipset might change my opinion of that based on what they're telling me. But yeah, really, where you don't want to skimp is on any of the core production equipment, things you're going to use, every day, and things like that. And then look for something that does, have good value. You don't necessarily want to try to get as few vendors in your facility as you possibly can. So that if you do have a problem, it's very easy to target where that problem is and to get someone who can help you. Certainly work with Keycode, who's great at design and managing those vendor relationships as well. But yeah, the fewer moving parts you've got, the fewer extraneous pieces of software beyond the core mission, the better off you're going to be. And it's one of the nice things too with Adobe, not just Premiere Pro, but the entire Creative Suite. So you can really take on any job that you need to with the Adobe software products on that side.
And just to echo what Steve said, some of the facilities I walk in that are looking to refresh their technology, I'm seeing network infrastructure that is from the last century. And the truth of the matter is, if you're building a network infrastructure, make something that's going to last 20 years. So yes, you've got tech refreshes you want to do throughout, but if you can get that core infrastructure that you're putting into the walls and up into the ceiling up to a certain level, you want to do everything you can to make that as cutting edge as possible, because in 2 years that's just the norm, and in 5 years it could be outclassed. So if you're putting in last year's technology, just remember that could end up be in need of a refresh in a very short period of time. Harry is asking.
On the coffee maker, Jeff. Don't skimp out on the coffee maker.
No.
It's critical.
Well, and the other thing also, use the carafe, not the heated glass, because it just makes it much better coffee, especially if you can't get to it right away. So Harry is asking, as animation becomes a bigger part of the market, is Adobe considering putting a few useful functions to help editors with Animatic? Just adding very basic drawing functionalities would give Premiere Pro a big advantage in Storyboard Pro, as animators are using Premiere for HD.
Want to take that, Carl? Do you want me to?
You can take that, Van. I was just going to say, we don't. It's a great feature request. I haven't seen a whole lot of it just yet, but there's no. It'd be interesting to explore that market further.
Yeah, we have, very honored to have many great customers using Premiere Pro for animatic workflows, and have definitely had some feedback there and had some requests around Storyboard Pro type of functionality. So we'll definitely take that back into consideration. And it also a good, and I'm glad to hear the request directly. Also a good opportunity to talk about user voice in Premiere Pro, which under the help menu, you can get to user voice. There's a great opportunity there to put in feature requests, and actually other users get to vote on them. So it helps us prioritize what in general the customers are looking for. But it would also love to, if you want to follow up through Keycode, love to talk to you more about integrations and benefits that we can do to help improve the animation workflow.
Very cool. Couple questions here on the LucidLink demo. Let's see if we can bunch them together. How is LucidLink different from proxies? Someone's saying that they use LucidLink for training on training with Premiere and Avid, and it's great, and they're in Scotland. They're teaching students in London. What sort of internet connection is needed? Is it a subscription service? And then someone else also asking about internet speeds.
So I can jump in there. It is a subscription service, as Carl showed. I mean, what's amazing about it is most of us have worked in a facility where you can mount a shared storage, like an Evo that's down the hall in a data center, and it sort of brings back that same model and same paradigm, but with cloud storage. But the really important part of that is that, you know, if you've used a virtualized instance or, you know, any of the cloud deployments, there are some considerations around only being able to monitor 2-channel audio, or only being able to work with 8-bit, or how many monitors you might actually be able to have in your setup. Where LucidLink is, because it's just a mounted drive, gives you the full access to your full tool set, all your displays, all the color and sound that you want to have in your existing project. So you can use proxies with LucidLink, and then there's benefits to doing that, but it also lets you work with full res content, which is pretty unique. It is a subscription service, LucidLink. You can find on the web. We're happy to talk to you about it as well. We don't sell it. We don't, you know, it's not part of Adobe. We just are fans of the technology. We've had a wonderful feedback from customers using it about the flexibility that gives them, and overall just the simplicity of just, I log in, it mounts a drive on my desktop, and then I go to work the same way I always have, without really thinking about where my media is, or, you know, do I have to move this or proxy that, or you know, anything. It just kind of gives you that simple workflow that you want, so you can stay in your creative zone without having to worry about where your media is or how to access it.
And as far as the bandwidth is concerned, there's kind of two separate types of deployments we see with LucidLink. Some people just use it for the Premiere production, so just that folder of Premiere project files, and they manage the media elsewhere. If you've already invested in, or you prefer to have, you know, local drive storage, and you're using some other service like an Aspera client or something to, you know, sync the files back and forth, you can get a fairly small amount of LucidLink storage and just use it for that central location for the Premiere project, and, you know, for the production folder, so that everybody is looking at one copy of that production folder, and then they all have the media is all local, using traditional local storage. For that type of deployment, you don't really need a huge amount of bandwidth. We still kind of recommend, I think it's between like 10 and 20 megabits, Van, if I remember correctly.
20 to 25 is kind of the floor, and then if you want to do 4K, you want to be about 100 megabits.
Yeah. And that would be, you know, if you get the different tier of storage, you can get the faster tier of storage that on LucidLink that actually allows the media to live on that same volume with the production. You know, that way everything is in the cloud at that point. So it just depends on what works best in your business model.
And the other thing I would think that could work nicely there is that, you know, if you're running productions in LucidLink and have your media local and smaller, especially if you're, you know, working out of the house because you haven't been able to go back to your facility yet, you're just maybe a small Evo sitting at home. And then you're backing it, you know, you get your productions running there, and then back up, you know, nightly to local. That way, if you've got a problem with your provider, Spectrum, not giving you good connectivity sometimes during the day, you can always just say, okay, I can drop back to my backup of my project, and I can continue working that way, and then work out syncing that later.
One thing else too, real quick, Jeff. I'm not as familiar as Van and Carl are. What protocol does LucidLink use to upload to their cloud service?
So once you have the drive mounted, it's literally you have a drive mounted. So you drag and drop files onto the cloud service, and it just copies them in the background. It does work on some local caching, so you still have immediate access to that. And as soon as that's online on the cloud storage, it syncs for everybody else. But, you know, as Carl said, and Jeff mentioned as well too, it really works ideal if you have a nice SNS local drive and you can pin your cache there. So if you have a sequence you're constantly working on that constitutes a bunch of media out of your project, you can pin that locally to your cache. So you're working on a local cache. It feels like an SSD, but you're actually live collaborating in the cloud with other users and have a similar cache on their side. So everybody gets ideal performance, and you have full instant real-time collaboration, and that's really key.
So
LucidLink, I was wondering if we could augment the sync stuff with some of the cloud hooks. So we'll obviously support the S3 protocol through our Slingshot API and the automation engine. So I spoke about earlier and stuff like that. So I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, the core piece there is LucidLinks actually sits as a translator piece on top of cloud storage. So you're going to be on top of an S3 bucket. So underneath that, you can still use all the traditional tools, you know, through Slingshot to do that synchronization. And then LucidLink is just basically it's using that smoke and mirrors that I mentioned to trick the editing application into believing that the files are there. So, and that's basically, it's kind of, files on demand, but the underneath is still standard cloud storage.
Yeah, so we could use Slingshot to automatically replicate to the local drives. And the nice thing, guys, with the hybrid model of cloud, which is really where I think the video world is living right now, it's still incredibly expensive if I want to keep 100 terabytes in a cloud bucket forever, and let that just grow forever. That becomes an ever-growing monthly operating expense at that point. So hybridizing that with some local storage to keep things that aren't work in progress, maybe on the local that you can always move back and forth, helps you to control those ongoing operating costs and, per gigabyte fees and ingress and egress and all of that stuff that can pop up. It can get quite surprising sometimes when you get a monthly bill that vendors been cranking away and doing a lot of renders in the cloud, different things. So keep your CFO happy. Hybrids will help them control their expenses.
Very cool. So one quick question that popped up from Geisha. Did you say Premiere Pro will generate a speech-to-text transcript? The answer is yes.
Yes.
So getting on to MOGRTs, Robert's asking if they work nicely with CatDV, and someone is also asking what the path is to get to MOGRTs because they're not seeing them.
Interesting. So let me take the last half of that first. So the motion graphic templates, when you create them, whether you create them in Premiere Pro or you create them in After Effects, and you got a lot more options in After Effects, you're creating sort of this packaged file. And by default, we actually put those files in a special storage place so that they show up in a panel in Premiere called the Essential Graphics panel. The Essential Graphics panel has a Browse tab, and by default, it'll look at all of your local motion graphic templates, and they show up there regardless of the project. Now, when you add a motion graphic template to a timeline, it is making a copy of that for that specific project, and it's putting it in your scratch disk location. So when you created your project, you probably set up a scratch disk location for where, like, captured audio, if you do a temp voiceover or something like that. So you want to check that in your project settings, because that's where it's actually going to put the motion graphic template. The actual files on disk are going to live in that scratch disk location. But the cool thing is the way it's designed, the motion graphic templates just live in that panel in Premiere, so you can reuse the same templates in multiple projects. You don't have to go find the project that contained that MOGRT to bring it back in. It's just going to live on your system. And there's an easy way. If somebody does hand you a MOGRT file on like a thumb drive, you install it into Premiere, and that way it'll just show up forever in that in that Essential Graphics panel. There's some advanced functions that I'm not covering here where you can put things in a library. Libraries are great for sharing with a team. They're automatically in the cloud. Once somebody has access to a library, they can just open up the libraries panel in Premiere. There's all the MOGRTs, and they can just drag and drop from there the same way from the Essential Graphics panel.
One of the other,
I want to do that. Oh, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, one of the other things I like, it's kind of hidden at the top of the Essential Graphics panel that Carl was mentioning. There's a little 3 tick box hamburger menu. If you pull that down, you can say manage other folders. So if you prefer to keep a collection of MOGRTs out on your SNS Evo or wherever else you want to have it, you can do that. It's a little bit hidden, but there's a nice function in there that offers some great flexibility for workflows.
That's what I was just wondering. I was like, can I put it on the, the shared render cache space that we would do in like a hybrid SSD where we're keeping some of those media database cache files and things? In which case, is it just referencing that location without copying it? If my render cache is a shared space, would everyone just see it, or would I still have to download it?
If everybody's looking at that external folder, so you'd have to turn that on and map it to everybody, then yes, it would see it. So the way Carl mentioned are the managed ways where you won't get lost. It's going to keep track of the files for you, and they'll always be present for you. But for some more advanced users, it's nice to know about that additional option to put them somewhere else.
Very cool. And then on the API too, I was kind of wondering, on to Carl's point about having to install it into Adobe, does it have to go through that installer? Because with the Slingshot replication, we could just say, here is a thing, here's the primary person. And even though the file may not live on the server, let's say your cache space is local to your workstation, the Evo server through its API can actually remote mount a shared folder. so we can become a client of that workstation, grab that MOGRTs file and replicate it to other places. So we could, streamline that across the facility very, very easily, because we do our, we do have the RESTful API where you can, guys like Van and Carl can get real down and dirty on that side. There is also the user interface to that API. So it becomes very simple of identify remote SMB share on the workstation. It gets mapped and you can just select it and say, okay, anything that's got this extension needs to be replicated across these 4 or 5 other locations, or whatever the case may be, across 500 locations. It doesn't really matter. But I wanted to make sure that you guys are aware that that stuff can get replicated out. So there's a few different ways to deal with that kind of thing. You can do it certainly at the application layer. You can do it at the file system layer. And as long as you've got a storage that's capable of handling that, then there's some, we'll call it elegance to be had, where someone doesn't have to go click something. It just happens. The more things we can automate, the better our lives are.
The more and more content people are having to produce these days, any ability for optimization is great, and that's where these wonderful integrations are magical, and KeyCode comes into play to bring them all together.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and the other thing is, as soon as you say the word MOGRT, I start thinking of little Yoplait jars, and I have to tell you, it's back in the dairy aisle. So, one last question.
As long as there's strawberry, right, Jeff?
Yes. So. If we haven't gotten to your question, it's either A, it was answered in the video itself, and should be able to be rewatched shortly, or we just haven't had time, and we'll try to answer those in the chats. Melanie is asking, is there anything new we should look into if we are considering on keeping our editors remote long term?
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, obviously LucidLink is certainly here, figuring out how to build that hybrid model. SNS is also provided by virtue of necessity, which is often the reason we build a lot of things. A cloud-hosted VPN service that you guys heard me talk about to accommodate that connection between the remote users. I'll leave it to Van and Carl to talk about some of the Adobe stuff, but Productions is incredibly cool if you're going to stay remote. I see people right now coming back to facility with things really out of sync because everyone was grabbing drives. So what I think is going to happen going forward, for what it's worth, is really more of a hybrid. Now we know it's possible to work from home. It's still not as nice as being able to hit my 8K raw video in facility for a color grade or something through Adobe's color grading tool. They still have to replicate some of that stuff. But we now have the flexibility where we don't necessarily have to be sitting in our edit bay. There might be a family emergency where I need to work from home, and I'm no longer precluded from doing that. And a lot of that has, come out of a lot of ingenuity from last year where we had to. There was no longer a choice, So that's kind of what I think. But I'll leave it to Van and Carl to tell you the rest.
I think one of the other things is, we mentioned Productions, and Carl and I are huge fans. We were part of the team that built that. We have another collaboration project called Team Projects, which is going under some major renovation and improvements as well. So Team Projects better for short form, Productions better for long form. But overall, as Steve said, just the industry is responding. We understand remote workflows are here to stay. They weren't a temporary thing. This is going to be the way things are for a while. So look for more solutions from Adobe coming out, from lots of our partners, from just all across the industry. I think it's going to be an exciting year of announcements to help enable people to stay collaborative, work at home, stay safe, and but still be productive.
Cool. Also, we've been having some conversations with some very large clients who, are asking those same difficult questions. And one of the questions is, how do we work our remote control workflow into a hybrid setup where people are trying to come into the office part of the time and they're at home other times? Do we reassign bays? Do we, how do we handle dealing with, all of these questions? And, that's one of the things that we've had some experience with, and have worked with a lot of people and set them up on mobile workstations. So you can pick it up, take it to the office, connect up directly to, to an Evo or anything else on your network, and you get your productions there. But if it's also kind of being distributed out into remote, or not remote, but distributed workflows where you've got your entire system at home, then that's the way. I think getting everyone into a hybrid understanding is going to make things much simpler, because the problem we had last year was it all happened suddenly, and we've had a year to learn our lessons, and now we know that we need to be able to pivot and be flexible. And if you're able to do that, I think you're going to be able to keep the lights on at home.
I'll take the shameless plug for you guys over there, Jeff, but it really is important to just get a good integrator and understand, because what you're doing when I'm in the local area network, I really do have control over every variable. I can adjust the size of my switch. I can get a faster line. I can go 25 gig to my workstation, so I can run EXR sequences in real time, off of an SSD-based local piece of storage. But what's really challenging, whether it be the hybrid model or the remote model or whatever, is now there's all this new variability. The wide area network, the internet service providers that Jeff mentioned here a minute ago. So what's really critical isn't necessarily understanding every little piece of what's happening in between, but getting someone who does, and telling them what you want to do, and really focusing on that outcome. I've got 20 people at home. They need to run this. This is our kind of turnaround time. And, definitely understand it through the process as to what's being built and why, and how to control costs. Because again, if you go all virtual, that can become very, very expensive very quickly, and in a fairly opaque way. If you go all local, it becomes a little more challenging to work at home. But and you can grow between those two things. Like when this all first started, I'm sure some of you guys saw our video last year, we released SNS Nomad, which was simply an ability to take proxies out of our database and do a very traditional offline workflow in that regard, but to do so in a way that maintained the file folder structure, actually very similar to some of what happens with productions in the back end on that side, where the file system is abstracted from the application layer, where to a user, it looks the way it's supposed to. But then there's that translation in the automation that to the computer, it also looks like it's supposed to, because we don't necessarily speak the same language. Computers talk to each other very differently than people do. So keeping that stuff in line through automation is, I think, going to be the most key thing to a successful remote deployment.
Sounds good. And, if you've got any questions about how to make that sort of stuff happen, and how to get into hybrid, how to keep, working from home, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll hook you up. We've got a number of arrows in the quiver we can throw at the problem to help you guys keep working. Carl, Van, Steve, thanks for joining me today, and hope everyone has a great day. And that's it.